I decided to focus on the memory chapter for the Lynn Abrams Oral History Theory book. Um, I found this one to be maybe the most useful for our oral history project, as it requires an interview, and you're getting what I feel like I'm going to be asking a lot from my interview subject is for them to recall individual pieces of their memory from this experience and how life is right now. And I think getting a window into how memory works is really important if we're going to be doing this project. I also think understanding how both the individual memory and the collective memory of the time works helps to make this our overarching project make more sense because we can better understand memory altogether, how it works, and how we can piece together all of our interviews to make one cohesive story. So anyway, moving on to the chapter, one of the most important things that I got out of it is just that memory is produced within like a wider context, kind of like what I was saying before. But Lynn Abrams talks about how there's this individual memory and then there's the collective memory, and using a bunch of different individual stories, we can build together the collective memory of a time. Um, Also within this chapter, it's talked about how somebody's memory can be heavily influenced by, say, pop culture or what the Times is saying or what they're being told, the main pieces that come out of it. So, not that people's memories are lying to them, but they get the main pieces from what society tells them is the most important. Additionally, I found it really important to highlight the different types of memory in that chapter, and there were five main ones listed. Semantic, which is just your factual knowledge, stuff you learn in your classes, stuff you learn at school, all that. Uh, Procedural is like skills and habits, so the steps that you need to do to complete a task in your everyday life, that would be your procedural knowledge. And then there's working knowledge, which I found to be a little similar, but I read a little further, read a little bit more into it, and kind of understand better now. Um, and working knowledge is just the material that we have that gets us through our everyday life. So it's a little bit different than procedural because it's not just a step-by-step instruction, but it's just how you get through your everyday life. And then there's episodic, which is just recalling specific events from your memory. Like there's a few, like I look at this poster behind me, and that's when the Phillies won the World Series. I can vividly remember that episodic memory in my mind, and I'm sure everybody has things just like that. Um, and then there's flashbulb memories, which are similar to episodic but more vivid. So if I were to use my Phillies World Series explanation, I would say um, I can identify the exact environment I was when I was at their parade. It was on Halloween in 2008, and I remember basically everything about that day. So that would be more of a flashbulb memory. Um, and then probably the next most important thing that I got out of the chapter was the memory process and understanding how that works. Now, it was made clear in the chapter that this process does not differentiate between men and women, that they've not found a difference yet. Um, but the process goes as follows. There's basically three steps. Step one is encoding the memory. So when you're taking in an event, you're encoding the world around you. You're getting that memory. That's the encoding process. Step two would be retrieving fragments of the memory, so your brain recalls pieces of the event. You're likely, in most scenarios, not going to remember every single aspect of it, so that's why you're only retrieving a fragmented part of the event, so you're not getting everything. And then step three is the narrator shapes their memory, so that can be done in their head internally or externally when they're telling it to somebody else. They're shaping the memory based on the things that were either the most important to them or the things that are just the most vivid in their mind. That's how the memory retrieval and recalling process works, according to the Abrams chapter. Additionally, one of the other pieces that was highlighted was autobiographical memory. Autobiographical memory, which is something that I found pretty useful for our project because we're going to be asking more so for an autobiography than anything, and it's more like remembering specific events from one particular person's past. You're not asking on the collective, you're asking about their individual memory. Um, and a couple more things that I thought were important. They weren't as big in the chapter. They had their sections, but I found them specifically important for our project. Is that is two things. One was that trauma helps build like people can fully remember instances of trauma, which I think depending on the person you interview, the this period, especially the coronavirus, and anybody who may have lost a loved one to this, um, could easily remember that day or that event because it's a traumatic period for them. And second, there was a piece that talked about how memory works in the aging process, and that as we age, memories from our childhood become a lot more vivid, but the short term memory starts to fade. And why I found that important is one of the people that I might be interviewing uh, is is an older individual, and they are going through that where they can clearly identify memories from their childhood, but a lot of these more recent events is a little bit more foggy. So I think that's important to understand if you are interviewing somebody that's a little bit older, is that it's likely that the short-term memory and what has happened in the last week might not be as easy for them to recall, but the big picture events, they can recall with ease. Yeah, those were some of the biggest points that I got out of that chapter. I thought it was really helpful, and I'm definitely going to be using the pieces of information I got learning about the memory process um, in my work on the assignment and on the overall oral history project.